This video is not for persons under the age of 13. By watching this video, you are declaring that you are above 13 years of age. Welcome to today's video about White Knight's new watercolours in full pan for 2020. I don't normally do unboxings or reviews of particular things like this, but here's the pans in their unwrapped form. You can't really see very much because of the mass tone of the colour. It makes everything dark, and that's the reason why we do a swatch in watercolours, so that we can see what it's going to look like when it's actually on the paper. Let's get down to putting the swatches out, and we'll do the first colour, which is this greeny one. I'll swatch them out, but I'll swatch them in a time-lapse manner, and then we'll come back and look at the individual colours in a more intense way. The first one is just to show you what I'm doing with regards to swatching and the procedure that I go through. I'm going to use this brush and I'm going to put a nice well of paint there. Get some more in it. There you go. And I'm going to pull it across like that so far, and then I'm going to get some water, just pure water, and bleed that into it. Here's a high resolution photo of the swatches that we did. We need to now move on to a second layer on each one of these to see how it acts when we glaze. There are the colours all swatched now, with both the initial layer and a second glaze. We've got some names for these now, and we're going to take a look at this in detail. First, we have this very light yellow, organzin yellow, if that's how it's pronounced, but it's PY129. That's its pigment colour. It starts with the first glaze or layer very light with a bit of texture to it, but adding a second layer makes it quite dark. So it's got a very broad range of colour that it can produce. And this colour, the actual PY129, is the colour used for making green gold, although it's not called green gold. Moving on to this next one, Cobalt Chrome Turquoise, and that's a PB36, and in a similar vein that had a very light start, but adding the second coat or glaze beefed it up considerably, and this will be very useful for all sorts of uses in water and sky. We'll move on to the next one, Ultramarine Deep. It's basically ultramarine, as you can tell from the pigment number PB29, but it's a deeper type of ultramarine, probably slightly darker, and it's got again a lovely colour of lightness, but it can still go quite strong in the second layer. Moving on to something that I'm glad we've got here. We've got, most of the time I use burnt umber for my brown, but I do like to use a bit of Van Dyke brown. Now this one's made with two colours, so it's not a pure single pigment paint. It's got PR102 plus one of the blacks. Now that black is basically charcoal dust, and this PR102 is red oxide, but it's a specific type of red oxide. It's the natural red oxide, so that's how it would occur naturally, and we'll talk about that in a while. But the brown itself is a nice deep brown, but slightly different from your burnt umber. Moving on to this colour, we've got Perylene Violet. It's a PV29, which is fairly standard for that. A deep dark purple on the reddish end of things, but when watered down in its first layer, it has some really nice delicate light purples, or violets in this case. And this one, which is probably my favourite, I've been wanting Caput Mortem. I use Caput Mortem in most of my palettes, but White Nights has not had one, but they have now. In a similar vein to this, but this is a slightly more purpley in colour, and you get when you add a second layer, it goes browner. Strange. But this is a PR101, which is another red oxide, but this is what they call synthesized red oxide. So it's the same as that as a pigment and that, but this is a synthesized version of it. But they do things to them to make them change in colour. Onto our last colour. It's a beautiful colour. Look at that pink, it's nice. And when you give it a second layer, this neon pink, which is a PR122, it looks lovely and it looks solid. Unfortunately, this colour is not light fast. Note the little asterisk there, and it says neon pigment has a dye that is not light fast. So whether that would be usable, I'm not 100% sure. So these are the actual paints that have come out from the swatching. Let's just briefly now look at one or two concluding points with regard to them and how I feel I'm going to use them. Let's round up then what I think about these things. First of all, I'll look at the negatives. There is only one real negative of this bunch of paints. They're all very nice paints, and in colour wise, every one of them's spot on. I love them. But we have got one issue here. The neon pink, yeah, it's a light fast pigment that they've used, but it's got that issue with it not being light fast, so that's a no-no for me. I won't be able to use that in any professional artwork. Whether you want to use it for inside a book or something like that, that doesn't get any light hitting it, fair enough, you might be able to use it like that, but that one's a definite no for me. Moving on to positives, we've got 6 colours here that will work great in the overall palette. Adding these to my existing palette as well, they'll fit in fine. There are 2 colours that I'm surprised that they've put in, and those are these 2. Not so much this Cobalt. I'm surprised they've put Ultramarine Deep in, as White Knights have a very large amount of blues already in their selection, where I would have to do some testing to see where it fits in. Although it is a very nice colour, don't get me wrong, I do like it, and I can see where I'll be using it. And again, this blue, there is a turquoise, but again it is different, and I will have to do some testing against the turquoise to see how different it is, and then I can say whether I can put it in the palette or not. Now moving on to me absolute most gonna be putting them in my palette is this. Definitely is going to be going in, just because it's green gold, or what they call it there. I've been after an alternative for burnt umber for a while from them, so that's great. We always welcome any purples that are light fast, because they're few and far between, so this Perylene Violet will be a good workhorse for a lot of things. And finally, absolutely overjoyed at the fact that we've got Caput Mortem in amongst the White Knights paints. It's a really good toning paint, and you can mix it with all sorts of things. It's a great paint. I use it in other palettes, and I'm overjoyed with the fact that it's in this new set of paints. So that really is those new paints for 2020. They're a nice set of paints, and I shall be using them a lot over the next few years. So now, thank you for being here and watching this unusual for me kind of video. I hope you've enjoyed it, I hope you've learnt from it, and stay safe, keep arting, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye for now.